Welcome to Florida Gators Live 39. We're now in like the dark period. There's a small break after SEC Media Days and before fall practice starts where there's not much news. You have the news that I guess you have a little bit of is North Carolina looking to join the SEC, and who will they bring along with them? Maybe a Virginia Tech, maybe a Clemson, maybe FSU wants to join in, but right now, there's not much news, but that will end pretty quickly as fall practice starts this week. So we'll start getting updates on who's looking good and who's not, who is being projected to start. Maybe who's like that surprise player or someone who's underwhelming. It's going to be a lot of news that comes out, but we're 34 days away until the Gators kick off their season on August 30th against Long Island, the Sharks, I believe it is. And we're 27 days away until week 0 kicks off in Ireland. But for today, week 0 kicks off in Ireland. We have a shorter show today. No Tyler Natuno, he's on his vacation, so we're just going to do things short, simple. We're going to talk about the Gators' chances with 5-star safety Braylon Womack. We're going to talk about Florida's floor and its ceiling. Could the Gators win a national championship, or could we go 0-12? Or hopefully not, but anything's possible, but it's not going to be that simple. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit of fall practice starting, some of the players, how are they looking? The weight room, Tyler Miles looks like he's doing a really great job there. But we're going to start off by talking about, can the Gators land 5-star safety Braylon Womack out of Hartfield Academy in Mississippi? Not sure how to pronounce the city's name, but as you can see right here, the 15th ranked player, number 1 safety in the class. This would be an elite level landing. Commits August 26th, I think the date is. Let me double check that real quick. I should say no, August 21st. So he commits August 21st to Final Four schools: Ohio State, Auburn, Texas A&M, and Florida. Those are the 4 places he took official visits to. The reports as of late are Florida starting to make another push for him. I mean, when you get closer and closer, that's when the noise really starts to pick up. And Gators, we've seen Florida land some commits early on, then lose them. But then last cycle, you saw us make later pushes in the cycle to try to land some of these top recruits, and it worked. So when the players get closer to that commitment day, and when it's closer and further into the season, that's usually when you end up having the best luck of keeping these players committed to your program. So we're making a later push here, but there's still 3 weeks to go until he commits in. For most of the summer, for really all of the summer and before that, Ohio State has been the team that has been seen as the team to beat. Florida's kind of been working its way up the rankings of his list. Wasn't really even considering Florida until we hired Vinny Suntory from, I think he was Washington and Jacksonville State, where Braylon Womack had Washington as one of his top schools until Vinny Suntory left. So that's a really great relationship to have for the Gators, and it's one thing that's really giving us a boost. But as of now, Ohio State and Auburn seem as they might be the top 2 teams. I mean, you can never count out Texas A&M and that not Jimbo, sorry, but with that oil money they have there. And Florida, we have a great relationship, and it seems like we haven't made our biggest push yet for Braylon Womack. You look at the rest of our class, or the rest of our safety class, we have Caden Hall, 4-star safety out of the Panhandle, Milton, Florida. He is ranked, where is he at? 240, so a decently high ranked safety commit in the top 250. We brought in 2 top 100 guys, including Hilton Stubbs, who was inside the top 55-ish area, and Lagonza Hayward, who was like the top 80, still top 100 players. So I don't know if it's as vital to get a 5-star safety and get multiple safeties as it was in our last class, to where our safety depth was looking like a real issue, as you had Jordan Castell, Bryce Thornton, Greg Smith, and is that it for safeties that this staff has recruited? Josiah Davis, but I know there was talks about him maybe being more of a special teams player than like a safety, although I think he was a pretty high 3-star. So safety recruiting hadn't been doing too well, but then we went and got Hilton Stubbs and Lagonza Hayward, who, let me get their actual rankings right here. Stubbs was the number 4 safety in the class, and Hayward was the number 8 safety. So, sorry, 2 top 10 safeties in the class of 2025, and it's been some real good words about him heading into this year, in their incoming freshman season, including Lagonza Hayward. But the main focus here is Braylon Womack, because if the Gators can't land Braylon Womack, who do they target as that second safety in this class? I mean, I don't really think, and many of us expected the Gators to go and land Hilton Stubbs nor Lagonza Hayward last year. So I think they might be a safety ahead of where they thought they would be. So I think there's a chance that if they don't land Womack, they might not go after another safety. But I think a couple names, I mean, I don't see it. Jeray Edwards, 5-star safety who's committed to Alabama. I don't really see that happening for Florida, but he did take a visit. He hasn't taken an official visit to Florida. So if that's something that they maybe worked on during the season and maybe things are going awry with Alabama and he's questioning his commitment there, we could still get him to come take an official at the Swamp, maybe for one of the games. And that's something that we could keep an eye on. But one more, or the one I'm really keeping my eyes on, Devin Jackson, former Gator commit, is now committed to Oregon. We saw it last cycle with Dallas Wilson. I mean, a lot of players, but specifically Dallas Wilson, who was committed to Oregon, but from Jacksonville going up to Eugene, that's a very far distance. It's tough to leave home and miss your family and everything like that. And if you have Devin Jackson, who is, I believe, he had a recent bump in the rankings, actually. Devin Jackson is ranked 174. I mean, when he first committed to Florida, he was ranked in the 300s, so he's had a bit of movement there, kind of what you would expect from a good player. But from Orlando, you know, Oregon obviously is going to be offering some good money, and they have great coaches. They were just the number 1 team in the country for most of the 2024 football season, so there's a lot of reasons to commit to Oregon. But again, that trip from Florida, Orlando, Florida, all the way up to Oregon, it's something that when we get closer and closer to signing day, it's going to be like, man, maybe do I rekindle that relationship with Florida and just stay home and be closer to family and friends? And he plays in Winter Haven, which is where CJ Bronow, our highest rated commit in this class, is also plays at different high schools, but same area. So they probably have a relationship there. I know they both took, when Bronow ended up flipping, he took an unofficial visit to Florida. Devin Jackson was also on campus for that visit. So I think that's something that Devin Jackson's a player they really like. They consider him one of their, like, that next level behind, like, the 5 stars. So it's one I wouldn't expect us to ever give up on, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking here in 4 months as one of the late Gator flips that really helped define this recruiting class. But going back to the overall question, can Florida land 5-star safety Braylon Womack? If you asked me a month ago, I probably would have been like a pretty heavy no. But as reports come out with the new NIL structures being in place because of the House settlement, I think there was some more wiggle room with Ohio State's offer, maybe not being as much as they would have thought. I do still think Ohio State is the team to beat here, and I think it's one that's going to be tough to beat. But as reports come out that Auburn feels like they have a better chance than many people initially thought, Florida is about to make a push. I don't think this recruitment is as rock steady as I would have figured and many others would have figured. So can Florida land him? Sure, but it's a very slim chance. And if he commits to Ohio State, I don't think this is one that we're looking at months from now as a possible flip target, because Ohio State's just won a national championship and recruits the best in the Big Ten. Like, they're not going to fall off the map. And he's not a Florida native, so it's not like he's going to be begging to stay in the state of Florida or anything like that. So if Florida lands him, it would be August 21st. But I think the chances that we do land him is pretty slim. And I think we go maybe focus our attention on Devin Jackson, and maybe we can get him and have that second safety to make a back-to-back really good safety classes with Stubbs and Howard and Hayward, and now Caden Hall and Devin Jackson. Check out the Voice of College Football website at vocfb.com. as you can see here, all types of articles from videos, all the videos that are done on the Voice of College Football Network. They also have new original articles here. What would happen if North Carolina moved to the SEC? As I was discussing earlier, it would probably be in a pair of two. And you can go check out this article, the Voice of College Football News at vocfb.com again. You can go check it out. And Mark Rogers discussed what could happen for North Carolina. And I think when people originally think of North Carolina going to the SEC, it's more about North Carolina being a basketball school. And we've seen the rise of SEC basketball. And of course, the Florida Gators just won the national championship. So and just set the record, I believe, for like the Ken Palm's highest rated conference. And like any other record that could happen for basketball, the SEC basically just broke it for conferences. So it would be a good addition there. But you also look at North Carolina's baseball program, which was just a top 5 team. I think they were ranked like 4th or 5th in the College World Series rankings. So the North Carolina baseball team really has a really good team, and surge, which goes along with the rest of the SEC baseball, which has been dominating for my whole life. I mean, for as much as I've watched college baseball, the SEC has really been the conference that easily stays on top. So, and then you obviously have the football move there. You're getting a whole new network or area moving to North Carolina. So it's not like you had Texas, where you already had Texas A&M in the state, and you got Oklahoma, but Oklahoma is basically just an extension of Texas. No offense there, but because we'll have a the Texas guy on the channel a couple of weeks, so no offense to Texas there. So our Oklahoma, so but you have Bill Belichick, and there's gonna be some eyes on North Carolina this season. So there's gonna be a network for North Carolina to join the SEC, and maybe that second team, whether it's a Clemson or I think they might go after one of the Virginia schools. I mean, FSU obviously is going to be a team that's mentioned alongside Clemson is wanting to move to another conference. I know the SEC has kind of closed the door, especially to FSU, and they've talked about the Big Ten, but that chatter has dialed down a little bit, but I don't think it's ever down and out. So we look at this schedule, and of course you can just go and say, hey, Florida's ceiling is 12-0 because they can just win any game. And look at it here, the floor, 0-12, because that's how football, that's easily how football works. But no, let's keep it realistic here. Let's figure out what Florida's ceiling is. So let's look at what I would consider like the guarantee wins. Games I look at and probably look at Florida's chances above 80+%. Like, not, I guess, guarantees probably a bit higher, but the should wins, like 80+%, 85+%. Long Island, that's a 99% chance to win game there. I mean, night game in the swamp against an opponent. Fun fact, Todd Bowles, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, his son, at least last year, I don't know if the roster is the same or not, was a linebacker for Long Island. So that's a little Florida connection there all the way up to Long Island. So something interesting there. But that's a game Florida's not going to lose. So, 1-0, you're guaranteed a 1-0 start. I think that's a pretty solid bet to make. Now, South Florida, they gave Bama some trouble for a couple of years, and they had a close first half with Miami, but the teams haven't really been that great. So I don't think it's something to where I'm too worried. Like, it's a good step up in competition. I think when you look at the schedule, going from Long Island to South Florida to at LSU, I think it's better to play a team that's going to have some competition better than it is to play one that's basically is net zero. So I like it. I don't think there's a realistic chance that Florida could lose this game. But I mean, it's always could, but Florida should and probably will win this game against South Florida. So it's a 2-0 right there. We're going to skip at LSU because that's obviously not a guarantee win. We're going to skip at Miami versus Texas at Texas A&M. But then we're going to get to Mississippi State, and it's an SEC matchup. There's no guaranteed win inside the SEC. Well, if any Mississippi State fans are seeing this and it's like, hey, we're going to keep this clip saved and Mississippi State's going to go into Gainesville and beat the Gators, it's just not happening. I think you've guaranteed 3 wins there so far with Long Island, South Florida, and Mississippi State, and don't really think that's too much of a question to really even worry about. The graphic cuts it off a little bit, but versus Georgia, obviously not a guaranteed win. At Kentucky is where it's interesting, I think, because I look at this Kentucky roster, and this is probably the worst Kentucky roster that I've seen since I've watched college football in 10 plus years of me watching college football. This is probably the worst Kentucky roster. I mean, last year they went 4-8, I think, and 1 win in conference play, and they lost like 8 legit NFL players from that team, and a team that still only went 1 win and 1-7 in conference. So I would expect it to be even worse this year, and I think it's a team that's going to go 0-8 in conference play and probably lose to Louisville, and so they're probably going to have a peak of 3 wins there. I mean, I would like to see Kentucky versus Mississippi State on a neutral field to see who is the worst team in the SEC. But it's at Kentucky, and it's a place that's given us a couple boo-boos. I mean, again, when you look at it from a non-roster perspective, it's probably something that's like, hey, you cannot count that as a guaranteed win. But I look at the Kentucky roster, you saw what we did to them last year. I think it's something that I'm very confident. Like I would not feel. I feel weird saying Kentucky has a chance to beat us this year, even though it's at Kentucky. So I think you have 4 guaranteed wins on the schedule. I'm not going to say FSU. Maybe I should, but I'm not going to say FSU. I know I said because of off the field, like non-roster stuff about Kentucky, but I think a rivalry game against FSU, maybe that accounts a little bit more. I also think FSU does have a bit more talent than Kentucky does. I think last year, if they had a decent offense, their defense would have been seen as a pretty decent to good defense last year, and it's something that they could continue to improve on. I know they lose Azariah Thomas, who was a really good corner for him, so it's not that easy to just lose a player like that, but I think they have enough talent to still have a decent enough defense, and I don't believe in their offense, but I think Gus Malzahn has a history, and Castellanos is the type of QB that can make those miracle plays, so I'm not going to mark it down as a guarantee win, but we should, 80%, probably 80% plus still win that game, but I'm going to say the guarantee wins are 4-0. But so let's figure out our ceiling here. When you look at the month stretch of at LSU, at Miami versus Texas, at Texas A&M, obviously I think we could win every single one of those games. But when we look at a realistic scenario here, is there a realistic scenario where we go to LSU, go to Miami, host Texas, and go to A&M, and we go 4-0? I'd like to think there is, but I don't think that's a logical way to look at this. You're looking at a coach whose best season is 7-5, 8-5, including the bowl game in the SEC. So I think the realistic best scenario here is 3-1. And I have us going 2-2 in that stretch, but I think 3-1 is like best case scenario in this stretch. And then it's only really that stretch that is cut off because of the Mississippi State game, which we already have as a win. Because if that game was 2 weeks later and this Georgia game was before Mississippi State, that 5-game stretch, it's tough. It's really tough. But obviously, I already said I think we beat Mississippi State. So you have those 4 wins. Now you have 7 wins right there, going 3-1. So you're at 7-1. And then the Georgia game. I picked the Gators to beat Georgia. Now I have Florida going 10-2. I think the Gators can beat Georgia. And I think we will. And I think in this ceiling scenario, I think they can. And you have that Kentucky win as well. And I think the interesting stretch here is Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and FSU. Those 4 games to end the season. Whether Florida is 1, 2, or 3 losses going into that Georgia game is going to probably determine a lot. But if we're looking at our ceiling here, I think we're going to be favorites in against Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State. I think the odds, as of now, they'll probably change throughout the season. If things go how I think they'll go, I think it's going to be a pretty close Georgia lean, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people might expect it to be. So I think we could go 11-1. Maybe that's me being a bit too Florida bias, but I think when you look at the LSU, Miami, Texas, Texas A&M, and Georgia game, I don't think there's a real scenario where you go 5-0 there. But I think there's a legit scenario where you can go 4-1, and then every other game on your schedule, you're probably going to be favored in. I mean, maybe you lose one of those, but I think in this scenario, with this schedule, I think Florida's ceiling could easily be 11-1. I don't think 12-0 was there. I think 10-2 might be the less optimistic or non-Gator fan biased perspective of this, because you're probably more likely to go 3-2 in that 5-game stretch than you already go 4-1 in. It's a really tough stretch with 3 road games, 1 neutral site, and 1 home game, and it's the tougher 2 games are the neutral and home game, which, it's like, hey, gives you a better chance in those. But would you rather host A&M, Miami, and LSU like we did last year, to where it's like, hey, you're more likely to win those, but it's going to be very tough to win at Texas? And I mean, Georgia's a neutral site no matter what, so that's kind of whatever. So I think the ceiling is 11-1, but I mean, cause it's just tough to see us not. I mean, it's tough to see us going 5-0 in that 5 of 6 game stretch from LSU to Georgia. And if they do, then we're talking about Florida having one of the best resumes in college football history. So that's one benefit of looking at this. I mean, it's no team in the SEC has an over-under of 10.5 or more. The highest over-under is 9.5, which just shows how competitive the teams in the SEC are and how competitive these schedules are. And Florida's might just be the toughest of them all. So I'll say 11-1 is Florida's ceiling, but I think 10-2 might be the less Florida fan bias ceiling. So I have us at 10-2. So I think I'll say we can do 1 game better, because if I'm picking us to reach our ceiling, that just it feels a little weird. So I'll go 11-1 is Florida's ceiling. Put in the comments what you guys think Florida's ceiling is. I know there's probably going to be George who says 12-0. And then there's might be some other team fan who comes in here is like 0-12. So that's just how this thing goes. But put what you guys think our ceiling is in the comments. We'll be back in about a minute after this video.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
Welcome back to Florida Gators Live. Got an interesting comment here. I asked you guys, what is Florida's ceiling before the break? And Rob says 8-4. Rob, you really think Florida's ceiling is 8-4? I'd like to get a little bit more input from you on why you think that Florida, at best, is 8-4. I mean, you look back to last season where our over-under was 4.5. Our over-under wasn't even making a bowl game. The over wasn't even making a bowl game last year. And we end up finishing 7-5. So 2.5 games better than what we were projected. Our over-under this year is 7.5. So if we do that again, we're talking about a 10-win football team. Rob, don't trust Billy, not getting my hopes up like last year. I mean, Rob, I'm saying, what do you think the ceiling is, though? This isn't your projected record. Like, let's say Billy figures it out and, what Lagway hits. I mean, when you look at your ceiling, obviously not everything is going to pan out. Like, Lagway, not Lagway is going to be the best player in the country. Ball is the best running back, best offensive line. Dallas Wilson's already a 5-star. Like, obviously your ceiling isn't every single player hitting because that's just not realistic. But if a couple of those things hit, like, especially if Lagway hits, I think that's the real kicker there. I mean, I think if there's there's probably like 5-ish things you could say that can determine Florida's season here. If you could only pick one, you have to pick Lagway hitting because we've seen it before where if you just get your QB to be that elite player, that can lead you to the promised land. I mean, you look back at 2010 Auburn, where you had Gus Malzahn as a coach. Can you name another single player on the Auburn team besides Cam Newton? I'm pretty sure no other offensive player was drafted besides Cam Newton. Like a good defense, but nothing else on the offense. Yet they still won the national championship. And Florida and Gene Chizik, outside of that season, was a pretty bad coach. And went to North Carolina as a DC, but yeah, I mean, I think if you can just get that QB to hit, they can carry a coach. And our offense is going to have a lot more beside it with Lagway, with 2 projected first or second round offensive linemen. Some other young guys are Damian George, who's probably also going to be a lower level drafted player, and a couple of other young shining stars on the offensive line. And Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson maybe being one of the best, if not the best, running back tandem to go alongside of Trayon Webb and Katie Daniels and the freshman you brought in. And then you have 2 true freshman 5-star receivers and J. Michael Sturdivant, who is seen as one of those guys that has all the tools, and many believe he's as good as people think he is, just didn't have the right system and fit at UCLA. And the point is, even if Billy isn't good enough of a coach to do things like make the playoffs and maybe make a push for a national title, we've seen the roster and we've seen coaches, if they just get the one right player, just go out there and have that 1 or 2 great seasons. And I think we have the pieces on this roster for, even if Billy isn't that coach, to do it. Cicada here, 10-2 is the ceiling. Yeah, I mean, I say 11-1. Maybe that's a bit me being biased, and I have us going 10-2. But yeah, that's Billy's ceiling so far. He's never made past 8 wins. I mean, Ryan Day hadn't won a national title until last season, and his ceiling obviously wasn't not winning a national title because he just did it. I think just because someone hasn't done it doesn't mean they can't. I think we just get a bit too fixated on oh, have you done it yet? And he obviously hasn't. So I don't know. I mean, out of 3 years, and he had to rebuild the program. Can you clarify what you mean here? Because I don't really understand what we're saying here. Out of 3 years. This is the best rosters he's had in those first 3 seasons, going into this year. I mean, it clearly is the best roster, the most proven roster. Billy's built this program on retention and keeping his players and reloading with his players and not going out in the transfer portal every single year. And last year, the end of the year, it looks like he finally had those players to go out there and win those big-time matchups against Ole Miss, who I think Ole Miss had the best, or had one of the best, top 40-ish players. Obviously, the step from the 85-man roster, they weren't at that elite level like Ohio State or Alabama, Georgia, Texas. But I think their starters and a couple on that 2 deep were good enough to compete with anybody in the country. And we still were able to beat them. Billy had the best roster in the Sun Belt and had nothing but one-score victories. He is too conservative to get his teams over the hump, in my opinion. I think that's an interesting thing to look at. If you go and look back towards like the Kentucky game, where we're up 14 points, 4 minutes left, we have the ball, it's like a 3rd and 7. From what people say, it would make you think that we're just going to run the clock out or run the ball, maybe even punt. But we take a deep shot and Lagley hits it and we go up 21, and then Cormani gets that pick 6. Not really something that's, going to happen over and over, and it's not something that you can repeat doing, because the quarterback making a pass, you can't guarantee where he's going to throw. But still, like, I think that's an example of him not just running out the clock. And also, I think the talent is just different for this team than it has been. I mean, it is different for this team than it has been for any other team. And I think we have the 5 stars, and if DJ Lagley can live up to being one of, if not the best QB in college football, we also play a lot of good teams. So if he has the experience to win those close games, I mean, would you rather a coach? Look at Ole Miss last year. Ole Miss couldn't win close games. Like, they beat Georgia, but they dominated Georgia. And now, obviously, dominating teams is awesome. But when they had their close games, to go look at Kentucky, they had no reason to lose to Kentucky, and they did. Then you look at the LSU game. They had no reason really of losing to LSU, and they did. Then you look at the Florida game. Like, those were their only 3 games that were decided within 2 scores, I think. And, or 1 score. Like, I know 1 score for sure. So, maybe having that experience of winning closest games is something that we could really look at here as a possible benefit with this tough schedule that the Gators do have. I'm still the same person. Hey, what's up? I'm not sure which name to call you. You can tell me which one you'd rather call it by, but yeah, welcome. Yeah, it's been a while. Tyler Natuno is just on vacation for this show. Right here. Fall practice starts this week, so next week's show is going to have some good stuff, hopefully some clips, and hopefully the words of some players doing really well, and maybe we'll start getting an idea of what the starting lineups and that 2 deep rotation is going to look like. I think it's really a couple spots you're looking at. Maybe the running back rotation, but I think I have a pretty good idea of who's going to be the top 2 there. But then the receivers. Is this 3rd starting receiver next to Trey and J. Michael Sturdivant going to be Dallas Wilson, Adam Mizell, Tank Hawkins, Vernell Brown? I believe Steve Spurrier Jr. said in a podcast recently that Florida is going to be running more 4 wide receiver sets, which I think we have the talent now to do it more than we've had any other point in the Napier tenure. It's not even close. Napier's produced some good NFL wide receivers with Ricky Pearsall, Chumere Dike, Elijah Badger. But then you look at the depth there. Look at last year, outside of those top 2 receivers, Marcus Burke, who I believe is now at UCF, Jaquavian Frazier's, who I think graduated. Let me double check that. I may have portaled, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I believe he just graduated. They have not had the depth to go out and run big receiving sets. And right here, we beat a few teams by a touchdown last year. Yeah. Like Ole Miss, we beat by a touchdown. Is that it? LSU 11. I think having a team that is ready to win those close games is something that with this schedule could be looked more as an asset than a potential negative. But with fall camp, 4 receiver sets. You look at the receiving core this year. J. Michael Sturdivant, Trey Wilson, Aiden Mizell, the 2 fresh 5-star freshmen, Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown. Then you can keep going. Another freshman, Nashawn Montgomery, St. Hawkins, TJ Abrams. DeBron Hampton. He just earned a scholarship, former teammate with DJ Lagway in high school. It's like, seems as if that could be something to watch there. I mean, connection going back to high school there, worked his way from a walk-on to getting a scholarship. Maybe that's one to keep an eye on. I heard he's really electric and is an electric player, maybe punt return. So I think this receiving room, Khalil Jackson, but the injury stuff is interesting. I don't know if he's even going to play because I think he said he is, but then the injury news sounds like it's not. But we'll see. And yeah, right here, perfect question. Or I'll get to this first, but yeah, by more than I figured that's what you meant. Just so I covered bases. Everybody has Wilson starting over Mizell. So I recently was seeing some interviews, and DeBron Hampton was actually asked what receiver has really stepped up over the most over the past summer, and it was said to be Dallas Wilson. And you look at the spring game; it's a spring game, but Dallas Wilson went for 10 catches, 200 yards. There is a reason Dallas Wilson was being targeted so much. Dallas Wilson is a 5-star talent that has the 6'3" frame. I believe he's already at the 220. He has good speed, good route running. Dallas Wilson has all those tools. And Mizell, I think Mizell might also be more of a slot, but I think more of a deep threat, I guess. And he's been a little underweight since he's gotten here. He's gotten a bit bigger, and we've seen some really good flashes from him. I just think Dallas Wilson might be a can't miss. You can't have him off the field type of player. So I really like Aiden Mizell, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's starting. I mean, really what matters is who's starting by week 3, because we're going to win week 1 and week 2, really, no matter what. But I think the real question is who's starting in week 3, and I think Dallas Wilson and could have that experience by that point. I'm assuming you're meaning Dallas, not Trey, but I'm not seeing what's happening because I think Aiden Mizell has that also elite speed. I think Aiden Mizell might be a better backup for J. Michael Sturdivant because another tall, quick receiver that is going to get open on those deep posts and deep routes like that. So I think Wilson adds a different level of physicality to the receiving room. And yeah, that physicality is something that I think could really be used on this receiving core. But again, like I was saying earlier, Steve Spurrier Jr. has talked about us running 4 wide receiver sets. So maybe it won't matter if maybe both can be out there on the field at the same time. And I guess also DeBron Hampton did say that the Gators, all the receivers can really play everywhere. Though I do want to check something about DeBron Hampton because he just got a scholarship. Okay, he's 5'10", not the player I was thinking. So that's, better than being 5'7", I guess. But yeah, is he a true freshman or was he on the team last year? Hold up, let me check this out. Okay, so he was on the team last year. Yeah, he came in with Lagway. Said he grew up a Gator fan out of Texas, so maybe a little talk and be like, yeah, of course, I was always a Gator because you don't want to give any props up to the rivals out there in Texas or Louisiana. So, well, I think it's a bit too early. We'll find out in the next couple days, actually. Has the roster been updated yet? No, we'll see what these guys' weights are going into the season. Tyler Miles talked about it earlier. I think he's done a phenomenal job with these guys in the weight room. They went from when he got here, I think having 10 players deadlifting, squatting or deadlifting 300, to then in year 1 having 45, and then year 1 under Tyler Miles having 45, to now having over 60. So I think that's a really noteworthy thing. So we'll see. It may also depend on the game. Starting is a bit contrived, because it matters more who's getting more playing time and who's going to be out there if we're in a close game that last drive. And maybe that Dallas Wilson physicality is a difference maker for going out there. You go back to year 1 under Napier, Devin Moore didn't start against Utah in his first career game, but he was out there on that last drive. So that showed some trust and physicality in him that didn't have. I mean, that you may not have thought he had. So it really matters who's out there when it matters the most and who's getting the most playing time, I guess. But let's talk about Florida's floor. So we just did our ceiling, and I had the Gators ceiling at 11-1. Many others have said 10-2. I didn't think that's fair, but I picked 11-1. So what is Florida's floor? I'm gonna start this by saying we're assuming everybody's healthy. We're not gonna say Lagway gets injured, because I think you say Lagway gets injured, it could go from it's like a 3-game or 2-game difference. So we're gonna say Lagway stays healthy, and it's just a normal season. Like, of course, there's gonna be some injuries here and there, but we're just gonna look at this how we look if we're predicting the team. So Long Island is still a guaranteed win. I think the same 4 games. Those same 4 games that I said are guaranteed wins when I was doing our ceiling, I still think are guaranteed wins. So Long Island, USF, Mississippi State, and Kentucky. I think those 4 games are guaranteed wins. And then you go look at that 4-game stretch against LSU, Miami, Texas, and Texas A&M. I think the cop-out answer is just to say 0-4 because they're all really good teams. You're thinking 3 of them on the road, and the one you're not playing on the road is the toughest of them all. So the cop-out answer is like, yeah, we could easily lose all 4 of those games. We could easily win all 4 of them. But as I said earlier, I picked us 3-1 as our ceiling. I think our floor is 1-3. And that's assuming Lagway and it's a regular season. Assuming Lagway's healthy. I think our floor in those 4 games is 1-3. I don't think there's a real possibility we go 0-4 in those games. But you look at 1-3, so that puts us at 3-3 going to Georgia. Wait, 1, 2, 1. Yep, 3-3 going to Georgia. I think you lose to Georgia in your floor. So that puts us at 3-4. Then I think that would have us beating Kentucky. So that would put us at 4-4 at our floor. And then wait. Oh, I skipped a game. 1-0, 2-0. And then of these next 4, we win 1. So that's 3-3. 4-3. Sorry, that was 4-3 going to Georgia. And then leaving Georgia was at 4-4. And then 5-4 leaving Kentucky. So the end of these last 3 games, I'll say our floor in those last 3 games is probably losing at Ole Miss and then beating one of Tennessee and Florida State. Yeah, our floor is probably going 1-3 down the stretch, which would have us finishing 6-6. Or 1-2, sorry. Down that stretch and finishing 6-6. So yeah, I'll say 6-6 is our floor, assuming everyone stays healthy. And even then, I mean, if everyone stays healthy, I don't really see us going 6-6. So again, this is our floor. Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen 7-5 as a more realistic floor for the Gators, but I'll say 6-6 here. Rob with an interesting comment. I will know how the season will go by the USF game. He will. We dominate it. It will be a good to great season. If the game is close, we'll win 8 games. If we lose, Billy is fired after the season. Okay, so if we dominate, it'll be a good to great season. If the game is close, we will win 8 games. And if we lose, Billy is fired. I'll say if we lose, then Billy probably is fired at the end of the season. I agree with that. I feel like if it's closer, if we dominate, doesn't really reflect how it will go because it's before the LSU game, so there's a chance they're not going to try to show too much. I mean, if it's close, it would be worrisome, but I also think it might just be looking forward towards the LSU game. So, I mean, again, if it's our floor, we still win those 2 games, and then, yeah, if it's close, then it's probably going to be a rough time going against LSU, Miami, Texas, and Texas A&M. But and if we dominate it, yeah, I mean, because you can't take away like if we beat Long Island 100-0, it means nothing compared to beating them 54-0. So and same against USF. I mean, USF is a bit more impressive because they actually have talent on that team. But those two games, I mean, unless you lose them, isn't really going to mean too much here. But to what standard? Said, I've heard reports USF has a good roster with depth. Like, is this depth compared to this American? You know, if it's in the American, like, again, the average team in the American loses to Florida by 30 plus points. And that's like on average. So there's probably more games where we're beating them by more than 30. Like, if I had to predict the game now, the final score, I would probably predict something on the lines of like 48-14. No, I'll say 41-14. Yeah. I mean, it's a team that went 6-6 last year, if I'm not mistaken. Here, sorry. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, they went 7-6, so I'm assuming that's a loss in the bowl game. No, they won. I mean, yeah, they won their bowl game. Sorry, so they went 6-6 in the regular season. I mean, that's just like a Bama. I think they were in Bama's heads a bit because of the year before, where I do think they were a better team. I mean, I'm not going to read too much into that game. I mean, if we're dominating them, I'm going to have fun, and I'm predicting this to beat LSU. Which is all Billy should do. Why would Billy not do this? Why would Billy go out there? Sorry, I'll read it. Rob said, okay, in all seriousness, I kind of trust USF head coach to come with a better game plan than Billy. I feel like Billy would just rely on our superior talent. Why would Billy go out there and show anything special against USF when you have LSU, Miami, Texas, and Texas A&M coming up? There's no reason for Billy to go out there and be like, oh, I'm going to go show you this state-of-the-art trick play I've been working on. We have this guy that's been under the radar that we know is going to give LSU some trouble, but if they don't know about him, like, or, oh, we're going to show them that we can go 5 wide and do it easily. Like, I don't think Billy should go out there and show anything against these teams. I think maybe you show some lag-lay deep balls to have some fun out there, but I don't think they go out there. I don't think they should go out there and put their best game forward. I mean, their best game plan forward. Like, I think you keep it simple. Just use your talent, dominate them in the trenches, which we should do real easily. Let Lagway do his thing, and we should just run him off the tracks. I'll put it this way, we should be saying Ole with the Bulls when they come to Gainesville on September 6th, which is in just under six weeks. I'll put it that way. So getting back to Florida's floor here, I think it's 6-6, although I think that's like the biggest possible floor, assuming everyone stays healthy. Put in the comments what you guys think our floor is. I've seen some 7-5s, but I think with how he's seen Billy, he's lost games that he shouldn't have in the past. I mean, every coach has. So, I mean, it's not just a Billy thing, but I think when you look at the past, I think 6-6 is the floor, not 7-5. There's no guarantees. You got to have that killer mentality. I mean, we can kill USF by keeping it simple. Michael here. It didn't matter because the players think they can beat anybody if they can't stop your offense. Yeah, I mean, we can do that. I'm not saying we're going to stop running offense. Like, I'm just saying we're not going to show anything special in that game. We don't need to. I mean, DJ Lagway, is more talented than probably the entire USF defense combined. Like, he can just do his average stuff. Like, he doesn't need to do anything special. And plus, DJ Lagway's injury stuff. Like, you probably also want to keep him rested for that game at LSU. Michael, 8-5 is the floor, so I'm assuming that means 7-5 regular season. And 11-1 is the ceiling. Fair enough. Ball can score 5 touchdowns in a game. You know, I love Ball. And I also want to say, I think Ball can thank the receivers a lot for those 5 touchdowns last year, being tackled inside the 5 like 3 times in that Kentucky game. And that's no just hate credit towards Ball, but Ball would probably only have 2 or 3 if the Florida receivers could not fall when they're about to score a touchdown. And that's something you got towards Lagway as him only having X amount of touchdowns. I think that's more on the fact that his receivers slipped and fell and got tackled a lot, which I think now at J. Michael Sturdivant, a tall, lengthy, quick, deep threat, I feel like they're going to finish those touchdowns off more than we saw from last year. We don't need to. You're right. Backup QB will be in the game. Like, that's near as a guarantee as it gets. Do you think we have turned the corner on defense? That's one key for me. I think floor is 6-6, but that would include a lot. So, Rob, you think our ceiling is 8-4, but our floor is 6-6, and that's would include a Lagway injury here. I don't think you understand the assignment, Rob. I think there's a loss. I think there's been something lost in translation here. But do I think that we've turned the corner on defense? I think you look at the end of last year after that Texas game. I mean, even look after the Mississippi State game. 13 points to UCF, 17 points in regulation to Tennessee, 20 points including a kickoff return for a touchdown to Kentucky. And then you have all those injuries hit for in the Georgia game, and the defense got 3 picks, and then like Devin Moore, Dijon Johnson, everyone got hurt on defense in that Georgia game. The Texas game kind of just, it happened. But then you go host LSU, 16 points, hold them to 3 field goals, and 1 touchdown, of course. Get 7 sacks on an offensive line that had given up 7 or 6 all season. And then Ole Miss, statistically one of the best offenses in the country, you give up 17 points to, and make Jackson Dart throw more interceptions in the game than he had thrown since, was it 2023? In 2 years? And then you hold FSU to 11 points. And then Tulane, you hold it's their backup to 8 points, and it was a last-minute touchdown that got Tulane the win. No, Rob, I understand what you're saying. I just feel like it's kind of a cop-out. Just be like, oh, he can't do it until he's done it. I feel like it's a cop-out. That's just my thought. That's just my opinion, though, Rob. So, get back to this, sorry. Do I think the defense has turned a corner? I think the defensive line has the top-end talent to really keep the Gators up there on defense. I mean, right here, LSU line was loaded with NFL linemen. RD line is good or better than last year. So, I think the defensive line, I think that's going to be just as good as last year, if not better, with George Gums now playing Jack and LJ McCray going into his second season. Yeah, it probably should be better because you'll have more of a presence off the edge. And then our linebacker room. You lose Shamar James, 5th-round pick in the draft. I love Shamar, really good player. But you still have Pup Howard, who was probably our most consistent linebacker before he got hurt. And then Miles Graham and Aaron Childs, two highly touted freshmen. I think we saw a lot from Miles Graham last year that would suggest that he might start this season and he might have the highest ceiling a Gator linebackers had since Brandon Spikes. Or, I mean, yeah, maybe I'm missing somebody. Jared Davis. So, and then you still have Jaden Robinson, who is like, if he's coming off the bench, if he's like your first linebacker off the bench, which we play a lot of linebackers, so you need them, I think you're looking in a fantastic spot. So I think that front seven right here, our front seven is looking really, really good. Rob, not liking our DT depth. I think that's a fair statement to say. So if I lay it out here, at starting Jack is George Gums, and probably George Gums, and backed up by LJ McCray. You also have the freshman Jaden Woods, who's been outstanding in the weight room and someone they think could really make an early impact. So I think at Jack, maybe you want a bit more proven. I mean, Gums had 5 sacks, but I think with McCray and Gums there, I think you're looking really good at that position. I don't think you can really question it. You look at the F position, it's even better. Tyreek Sapp, a projected first-round pick, was one of the highest graded players on PFF returning this year. Like, he's really good. And Cam James backing him up, who was also really good backing him up last year and gets another year to get better. I think, and then you also have Jalen Kofi Asare, the transfer from UMass, who can play Jack and F. And then you have Jalen Wiggins, another true freshman they really like. Like, I think you're looking really good at the 2 edge and defensive end positions. So then you get to defensive tackle. This is where there's a bit more flexibility. Get a sip of water real quick. So I don't think you have any questions about Caleb Banks. I think Caleb Banks might be the second highest ceiling player on this team behind DJ Lagway. I think his mobility and his weight and his technique is something that is so good. And I think if we get more endurance and consistent play out of him, Caleb Banks can be looked as a top 10 draft pick next year. And that's not ridiculous to say. So I think you're really good with there. And he's going to be starting at the defensive tackle spot. Then you look at nose tackle. Now, Banks can play nose tackle. Maybe on pass downs he will. You have 2 guys there. You have Jamari Lyons, who people were expecting to take a nice leap last year, but he suffered his ACL injury in fall practice. And it sucked and it's prohibited him, but he's going to be back and hopefully better than ever. And you have Mekhi Barrow, who last year was a true freshman, a true nose tackle, played a lot of minutes backing up Cam Jackson and Des Watson. I think if he takes another step, I think you're looking at a really good 3 guys there in Banks, Barrow, Lyons. Then, so who's backing up Banks? I think it's a pretty quick and simple answer. I mean, you bring in Brendan Bett from Baylor, someone that Matt Rule or Dave Aranda, really good defensive mind, had nothing but praise to speak of from him. I think had a really good freshman year, missed all but the bowl game last year because of some academic issues. Like, I think you look at Brendan Bett as someone who I'm really liking to see going into this senior. It's going to be his redshirt freshman year, I guess. You know, it's not elite because it's not as proven, but I still like it. And then you still have the JUCO, whose name is escaping my mind. Let me find it real quick. Here. Why is he not on the depth chart here or on the roster? Oh, there it is. Brian Taylor came here as a defensive end, has moved to defensive tackle, someone that they really liked coming out of this JUCO. We've seen success with Jacoby Jackson as a JUCO. I mean, maybe you see another step from Brian Taylor, and he could be a good player for us on the as a depth piece, and could step up. I think you also have Tavares Brown, someone that Caleb Banks mentioned while at SEC Media Days as someone who needs to physically mature or still mature a bit, who is just a behemoth of a man standing at 6'7", basically 300 pounds. We'll see on this coming week what the roster looks like and how much weight he's put on or what his measurables are looking like. But another JUCO guy that they really liked and maybe he's someone who could take a step. And then you have your freshmen. And neither of them were that highly ranked. Neither were top 250. I mean, Joseph Mbachu was ranked 254, so there's no real difference between 250 and 254. But, sorry. I've heard some really good things about him, or they think that he has like a sky-high ceiling. Mbachu, like, he's really raw. I mean, he wasn't even ranked. He finished as a 4-star. He wasn't even ranked until August of last year. So he's someone that once was identified, started shooting up the rankings. I mean, he's not going to play much this year, I don't think, because he's still really raw. But in the future, and then Jeremiah McLeod. I mean, go back on Mbachu. Texas had Mbachu. We flipped him. It wasn't easy to flip him back from Texas. But then look at Jeremiah McLeod, who everyone thought Georgia was going to flip. Georgia really wanted him. I think he's someone who's more day one ready than Mbachu. Maybe not as high of a ceiling, but someone that we could see valuable minutes from this year. I've heard good things that they really liked what they've seen from him. So I think there's names there that could step up. And I think it's names that in Billy Napier's tenure, we've seen step up. So I think it's right to have him worry about it. And one of our 2 losses I have being against Texas A&M, and I think it's because Texas A&M is one of the best offensive line and scary run threats in the country. So I think they could wear us out, but most of our opponents, I don't think, are going to be too much of a worry about that. Getting back to this, what was Taylor's stats? I mean, he didn't play too much last year. It's more of just development behind the scenes, like hope that the players keep just getting better and better. Yeah, I don't really think he had many stats, so it's not really worth checking. Micah Burrow, Makai Burrow had good experience. Lions has good showing in the spring. Lions was good his freshman season, or back in 2023 as well. So we've seen good play from Lions. He's moved to defensive tackle because of those depth worries. So he's now a defensive tackle. But there is flexibility between all these guys. I mean, I've seen Caleb Banks come off the edge and beat Georgia starting left tackle Monroe Freeling. So there's a lot of flexibility. Lines are good. Betts can put us over the edge. Yep. I mean, we'll see. And then, yeah, experience. I mean, Brian Taylor doesn't really have a lot of experience, but we'll see what happens there. But guys, thank you guys for showing up and being active in the chat. If you guys enjoyed the stream, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and you can become a member here at the Voice of College Football, Florida, the Voice of College Football, for $2.99 a month. We're probably going to do some in-depth reviews of these games, like more in-depth. For our potential members here, it's $2.99 a month for the cheapest option. We got some cool stuff there that you get for it. And make sure you guys like, subscribe. We will be live next week with the Georgia preview. Natuno, I will also be talking about the first couple days of that fall practice. A lot of stuff happening, a lot of moving parts as we get closer and closer to the season. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. We will see you next time. And as always, go Gators.